になりましたね。すごく音がバリバリバリバリしてます。12月4日、雪ですね。今雪が降ってます。もう船内はね、なんだ8度ぐらいでしょうかね。8度、7度ぐらいです。冷たい雪ですね。スコールが冷たい雪になってます。
C'est un truc de fou, il neige. Regardez. J'ai de la neige sur le bonnet.
Hello Seawolves and welcome back to the show. Another 24 hours have passed and you just saw Violet and Kajiro Shirishi there. Some pretty intense weather over the last 24 hours. We saw hailstorms, snowstorms, big squalls, well, just a lot going on. We'll get into all of it. Of course, a lot of things happening in the front with Charlie and Johan. But first, I hope you have something delicious in your cup as well. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers, Wolves.
Presque peur. Regardez-moi ce ciel là. C'est l'apocalypse.
Some beautiful sunset images from Sebastian Simon and several other skippers actually there. I mean, the weather is not really great, but the cloud formations and the colors, especially around the golden hour of sunrise and sunset, are pretty spectacular right now, pretty much all over the fleet. So that is pretty cool. We have a nice update, sort of in the similar theme of just very variable weather from Conrad Coleman also. Check it out.
1,391. That's how many miles remain to Cape Horn this morning. As the sun comes up here in the south, it is beautiful, but oh my lord, it is cold. Look at this. There's a squall over there. There's a squall over there, and there's one just underneath me here that's created a crazy wind shift. And since to be fair, it's been a tough couple of days because there was the excitement and obviously the stress of the iceberg crossing, of the continued stress about trying to avoid its brothers or sisters. There were more on the route that we managed to avoid at night by sharing GPS positions amongst the fleet. So just a couple of days of really high alert, high vigilance sailing, and then now that we're in the final basin of the Southern Ocean, with 1,400 miles to go before the Horn, incredible squalls, changes of force and direction with the wind. Just in the last half hour, I've had 60 degrees of wind shifts. And so it's incredibly difficult to know what sails to put up. There's one reef in the main for the moment, and then here I've got the little Jenica still at the J3. I'm wondering whether I should go to the masthead. But for the moment we're doing a nice little surf. But no, need a sheet on. We're going to be surfing like that. So yeah, just really difficult, really cold, really challenging place to sail at the moment. And even though we don't have a crazy storm, still tough to rest, tough to recover, and 3 days to go before the horn, and I will be excited to see it because it's time to get out of here. I'd like to feel my feet, I'd like to feel my fingers, and I'd like to start heading north. So I'm happy, it's cool, it's exciting, but it'll be nice to not have another hailstorm. I had hail on me yesterday. It's time to get out of here.
Yeah, so same experience, just very unpredictable weather all around, like a pretty crazy stuff. So one thing, yesterday in the episode, of course, I talked about sort of doing a more longer, in-depth explanation fundamentally about why stuff kind of keeps breaking and faltering, let's say, even though many of these systems and designs that are, that are being used in the Yamaha fleet are kind of top of the line, top materials, top designs, top everything, but still we have so much breakages, and there were a lot of questions from you guys like, why does this kind of keep happening? Can't we invent like, sail hooks or, foils or this type of things that just don't break? And so there were so many people who responded yesterday saying, yes, please explain yesterday. So I will definitely do that. But I decided to do that in a separate video because I was thinking about like how to make the argument, and it's kind of complex to do it. And it's very important to me that we have a lot of people watching from a very big variation of, let's say, schooling and age and experience. So I know we have some like highly skilled, engineers and science people watching the show, which is great. And they may, for them, this argument may be like pretty easy to follow. But we have also, school kids watching with their parents who maybe have no experience with sailing or, with science or like engineering topics and things like that in general. And so I want to structure the argument in a way so that most of you can all follow along, and so I can make it sort of clear and take everybody with me in the explanation, so you can all kind of understand, independent on kind of what level of scientific thinking, let's say, you're on. So I'll make that in a separate video, and it's going to take me a little time because it's a very complex thing to explain in a way so that all of you can really understand it. So I think I'm almost there, but it'll probably be a day, maybe two, and then I'll post it as a separate video. No worries, I'll mention it on the show and I'll like pre-announce it so you won't miss it. But just so you know, it's not going to be in this episode, it's going to be a separate thing, right? Why stuff keeps breaking, etc. So yeah, that's actually pretty much it for the updates today. No crazy breakages or anything like that today, so that's very nice. A lot of details to talk about, so let's jump in here with me for the tactical analysis. And we'll start again here at the front, where we see that, let me just refresh here just to make sure that we have the latest and greatest moment here. Yeah, so I'm glad I updated because I think I was still a little bit behind there. Yeah, so Charlie has made a bit of a gains on Johan again. And interesting when we look at the speeds, I don't know if he's still, yeah, so he's doing right now, over the last hour, he's been doing 24.9 knots, and actually current speed 23.5, compared to Johan, who is doing 16.7 and 17.4. So that's quite a big difference, right? And if we zoom in quite a bit and look at the wind direction here, I talked to you guys earlier about the fact that Charlie's boat is sort of optimized for reaching. So that means kind of the conditions that he has now, right? If we really zoom in on Charlie, you can see here with kind of the wind direction lines that he has the wind kind of right from the side. So it's kind of on a beam reach. Now, of course, with him going fast forward, the actual wind direction is going to shift forward also a little bit. And so that's kind of ideal for how Charlie's design is balanced, let's say, what it's optimized for, to be right around that wind direction. So Charlie has ideal conditions today. I kind of said about this yesterday also, that we might see some actual like speed records or things like that, because the circumstances are pretty good for that. And you see him doing, 24 knots over the last hour. Over the last 24 hours, it's still a lot lower, like 16 point something, because they only just got into this more ideal conditions. But give it another 24 hours, he might actually see another, average again of like 23 or something like that. They may not do another speed record, but it will get as close to it as we've seen sort of earlier in the race. And so the thing is that Joon's boat is optimized a little bit differently, right? It's actually more optimized for when the wind comes a little bit more from the back. And so if we analyze kind of the road ahead, if we kind of look at the wind direction, you can see that sort of until around here, let's say, the wind is going to be pretty much ideal for Charlie's setup, right? So for reaching conditions, it's going to be ideal, and so Charlie has a bit of an advantage here. But then, let me use a different color here. For this part here, because their course is going to be a bit different, because they're going to not, because you have the doldrums kind of, here, so they're not going to want to get too close to that. So again, if we have sort of Charlie's, optimal part here, sort of like that, and then we get an area where it will be a little bit more different, let's say. But in this particular part, and maybe also here, but that's more upwind again. But for this part, I would say probably, as far as the wind direction changes, will much more favor Joon. Because then instead of that real pure reaching, which Charlie is optimized for, Joon is going to have a little bit more of an advantage. So I do think that the area where Joon is advantageous is a little bit shorter. And right after that, we get the actual doldrums, so they might stall or whatever. So I don't necessarily see Joon catching up all the way with Charlie there, although if Charlie stalls in the doldrums somewhat, they will compact again. But it's kind of interesting that, for the next a little bit more than 24 hours, maybe 32 hours or so, we're probably going to see Charlie run out a bit more, because he just has the ideal conditions for the optimization of his ship, while Joon will fall back a little bit. But then, as we get kind of over that line, the wind direction will favor Joon a little bit again, and then we might see kind of the reverse, where we see Charlie doing maybe 20 knots or 19 knots or 18 knots, where we see Joon doing 23 and 24 again. So it will sort of flip right around. So that's kind of interesting to look out for over the next 32 or so hours all the way in the front. Well, Sebastian now good in the wind, but going mightily slow, because he has the wind like right against him. So that's kind of unfavorable for him in that sense. We see Thomas Rouillant here still ahead, but closely followed now by Paul Malott. So Paul caught up quite a bit. I don't know if that necessarily is because Thomas lost his J2 yesterday. It could be a mix of factors. He's also, as you can see, in a bit more lower wind, so they're running again into an area with a bit more high pressure where there's a bit less wind there. So it could also be just some natural compacting due to the wind situation. Could be a mix of both, so I don't know. It's not necessarily indicative of Thomas just becoming slower overall because he's missing that important working jib J2 now. But it's interesting that he was running out like pretty well, and now all of a sudden we see the rest of the group kind of catch up pretty quickly to him. So behind there we have that whole group kind of with Boris. We had a nice onboard shot from Boris also. Take a look.
We are moving a little bit in the center of this low pressure, and it has been quite okay until an hour ago. Since an hour it's un peu n'importe quoi. I mean, look at these waves. This is a couple of meters wave height. And just very, very light wind. Yeah. And then a big cloud that's announced on the radar. Somewhere over there must be some good shape. We're not so far from Charal and Holcim. But the little distance could make a big difference if they get out nicely and we get stuck. I mean, that's always the fear of getting a bit stuck.
Yeah, so they are in some very variable weather also. Sam also made another video again from that area.
Hello! So there's some good news and there's some bad news. The good news is we got some wind and we're moving. And bad news is we played pretty hard. Basically spent the whole day yesterday and the whole night last night not moving anywhere. And while the others were moving, or most of the others anyway. So yeah, it cost quite a lot of miles, that's going to hurt. The other good news is it's warm, I got my t-shirt off. And the other good news is I'm not on my own, because I can see Boris. Nobody can see him. Probably too small, but there's a tiny little Boris over there. On Melizia. So it's not all bad news, but it hurts, I'm not going to lie. But at least we're moving, so I'm happy with that. And I might even try and have a shower. It's going to be cold, but the water's not warm, but that'll be worth it. Oh la la, what a night. See ya.
So he's actually very close to Boris, was seeing Boris there, and it's low wind, then it's some wind, and it's a bit variable also. Very differently variable, by the way, from what Conrad and what the guys in the Southern Ocean are having. So they are not in the same weather, let's say. But it's just interesting that all of them are having a lot of complex weather right now with a lot of local squalls and kind of just very unpredictable local weather. Then we have Benjamin Dutroux and Clarice Kramer. Now Benjamin has now sort of overtaken Clarice, so he's been running out a little bit as they're both kind of hooking right into this, like a little bit more wind ahead. And I guess Clarice got into this wind just a little bit later. We can take a quick look at the routage for them. I mean, they're both going straight north. But it looks like Benjamin has, at least in concept, a bit of a more optimal route there at first. Although if you look at it a bit later, you see that, you know, kind of all over the place. A bit in line with the fact that, you know, sometimes you get a little bit lucky, sometimes a bit unlucky. There's just so much changes all around that it's hard to say who it will kind of benefit in the end. Samantha sort of keeping up, so she fell back a little bit yesterday, was a bit later into the wind, but she kind of managed to hold on. So she's not quite in their little group, but she's also not quite you know, isolated out there. So it's just a little bit behind, and you can see again some light weather kind of behind them there. We have Robin Atanasio and Damien Seguin both passing the Cape and having kind of taken the notch here, you know, like on the inside of the islands, rightly followed by Jean Le Cam. So again, distance-wise, pretty stable, and as you can see, they're running into some light winds now here. So we can run the routage for Jean for a second. Let's see. Saying that he will probably take a different route, which I actually think he probably won't do, but we'll see. And so him going like past the Falklands, while the rest is going on the east sides, and still ending up more or less in that corner which we saw yesterday, right? Where the prediction is saying, yeah, probably many of them are going to be sort of running into a dead end there. I think personally, actually, that Jean also will opt for the shortest route. So I think he'll actually go on the inside there finally, but no way of knowing until he actually gets there, I guess. But so that's a bit what I think will happen there with Jean. Then behind there, Alan Rora has had a great 24 hours. He really ran away like quite far now from both Isabel Joschke and Giancarlo Pedotto. Of course, both of them are having a bit technical issues. Isabel lost her foil, and Giancarlo struggling with his engine and several like small breakages on board. Although I think he's managed to fix the engine again now, but you know, they're keeping up with each other pretty good. Alan running forward, and he's also in a lot of wind now, so though he's not doing like 20 knots or anything like that, very good VMZ of 17.7 knots. And if we compare that to what Jean is doing, right now he's at 14.1, so he's actually running up to Jean a little bit, so that's kind of nice, having a little bit of strong winds getting to the Cape. If we run the routages for him, I wonder like how the Cape is going to be. Pretty strong it looks like, so yeah, Alan's going to get a pretty, it's not going to be like an epic 60 knot situation, but probably gust up to 40, short seas, so he already had quite a bit of damages on board. So I would say, you know, Alan, watch out not to break anything else there. And then behind there we have Benjamin Fair, we have kind of the whole dagger board group, managing to stay pretty close together, so they're having a lot of hail, rain, just very variable weather. You saw Conrad, you saw Violet before, they all sort of pretty close together. Conrad managed to hold on, well, he fell back one position again, but not in last place, so he managed to stay ahead of our man Bogeris here, but Benjamin Frere doing very good, and Tanguy also very nice.
Ça fait presque peur. Regardez-moi ce ciel là. C'est l'apocalypse.
And then hopping all the way to the end, we have Olly. Olly, yeah, I'm almost a bit afraid to show you guys the route just because I already checked this earlier. And yeah, you can see that he's moving slowly right with that weather, and it just isn't letting up. It's staying with him until sort of here, which is again something like 32 hours ahead. So yeah, poor Olly, he's definitely not out of the light stuff yet. Behind him there, Antoine Cornec and Jean Genjou, both in a little bit more wind, so they're kind of cruising nicely at knots, around 10 knots speeds. And the duel here in the back between Manuel Cosin and we have Fabrice Amadeo there, just matching each other like really close. They're not abandoning each other under any circumstances, just racing together really closely. And Dennis van Wijnberg, yeah, still slowly catching up, but as they're having a little bit more wind now, they're kind of even. So he hasn't really closed into them that much, pretty much keeping pace. So yeah, we can run the routage for him a little bit again, see if there's any chance of the model thinking that it might catch up. But no, it looks like actually much of the catch-up scenario so far is out of the question, what we saw earlier in the models, but who knows, maybe later in the race there'll still be some way for Dennis to catch up and actually see some of the other sailors again during this race, as he's been racing pretty much alone for the entire Southern Ocean so far, but I guess we'll see. So that's it for the update today. Hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and enjoy your weekend. See you in 24 hours. Ciao, ciao!